Hello everybody and welcome to the next episode of BTA Bitesize. I hope you're all ready for some AoE mayhem because that is what we are going to be covering today. This is going to be artillery day today. Now, a couple of things to get out of the way first. Although primarily the artillery is a ballistic based class, as you can see from the three that I've got listed up here, there is actually a couple of other ones as well. So there is the Arrow 4, which is the missile based one, which I am going to be covering in this video. Purely because it kind of seems a little bit stupid to do it on its own. Because it is literally the only missile one there. And with regards to mortars and to a lesser extent grenade launchers, they kind of are and kind of aren't artillery. And the mortars especially have a fair few different ammo types to work through. So this video is going to be really long as it is. Again, I'm going to timestamp everything so you can just jump to the system that you need to know. But yeah, so for the purposes of this video, I will be covering the long-term artillery, the sniper artillery, the thumper artillery, and the Arrow 4. But like I said, the mortar will be coming in its own video next time. Hopefully I can get the grenade launcher class in there, even though it's a support system. It's still kind of in the same bracket, so don't forget to drop a sub to the channel so you don't miss that next week. Anyway, let's get on with the video. Okay, so artillery as a whole, its main job is probably slightly different to what you kind of might expect. Whilst it is a direct damage capable weapon, personally I would say its most effective use is for map control with regards to sort of area denial and decimating buildings and bases from afar because, you know, screw turrets. Make no mistake, they are big and they are expensive, as you can see from the image we got there. And none of them can fire in a melee, which kind of is irrelevant because the ability to mount these things is quite limited, and the mech you're going to be able to mount them on is going to be quite slow. So if you're in a melee situation with a mech with one of these things on, there's probably something that's gone drastically wrong. Meleeing with artillery is the least of your worries. The other big advantage of this is that you don't need to have line of sight. You can just literally, if it's within the range of the weapon system, you can hit the fire at ground button. And basically just like nuke anything from a distance. So this is especially good for dealing with bases and such, where you know where things are. And if you've got a general idea, like you've got a forward scout mech and his sensor is picking up the sort of like the red blips, but haven't really identified the mechs, but you know where they are, then you can drop artillery on them like that. So you can kind of decimate enemies or do a lot of damage to them as a group before they even get anywhere near you. So yeah, it goes without saying that if you are going to have artillery stuff, then you do need something that's got, you know, basically a good scout to run with it, preferably with sensor lock and stuff. So yeah, so that's pretty much about it for the sort of like the general overuse. And so I'm now going to jump into each of the different weapon systems. I have actually drawn up some images to try and help explain stuff, which I'll put up on screen for you as we go through. But yeah, so we're going to go and get started with the long tom. Okay, so starting off with the long tom artillery, I apologise, I'm not going to be looking at the camera a lot. I've got a lot of stuff written down in front of me, so that's, you know, why I keep looking down a lot, just to try and keep me on track. Starting off with the biggest and the baddest of the artillery, we have the long tom. It is a big boy at 30 ton and taking up 12 slots, so it's your whole sort of side torso, which is makes it very hard to mount to anything. You are going to be very limited. It is a torso mounted only weapon purely because of the weight, and as you can see, slot wise, it actually takes up all the arms, so you can't remove the shoulder and the upper arm of your mech, so you can't mount a long tom artillery in there. It does have a very high recoil of 4. And it does suffer with the accuracy, as it does have a -1 to direct fire, but honestly that's not really going to make a lot of odds, and with your pilot skills and equipment and stuff you can easily counter that anyway. The shot variants, the shot can scatter basically between 15 and 35 meters. That's essentially just means like where you aim, like the central point, it can go between 15 and 35 meters in any direction from there. you know, it's artillery, so it generates 60 heat per shot, so you need to watch out for that. That can actually creep up on you, but it does get a double crit chance. So again, this means that the chance of you getting a critical hit is doubled, not the amount of damage you do in the critical hit. It has got a couple of different ammo types as well, which we'll sort of delve into. So yeah, it sort of like varies a little bit, and this can get a little bit complex. So strap in, because this is going to take some explaining. So first off, there's a picture up on the screen to try and help me illustrate how the damage works here. So you can see there is Mech A is our initial target, so he's the one we're going to assume that we're actually directly firing at if we can see him. And Mechs B and C are currently in the enviable position of just being in his general vicinity and being in the wrong place at the wrong time. So starting off with the standard long-tom ammo, when you fire this, you have a 250 meter area of impact. So that means that basically when that shell lands, all the damage and destruction it does is within that particular bubble. So if you fire the standard shell at the Mech A and it hits it, it will do between 60 and 120 damage. All of the artillery have a damage variance of plus or minus a certain amount. And it will do 50 stability. Now, Mechs B and C will both take 80 damage and 10 stability each. So that's, that's the whole, where the AoE stuff starts coming in because of the explosion. But Mech A also takes that 80 AoE damage and 10 stability as well. That means that Mech A can potentially take sort of around 200 damage. It can actually take a total of between 120 and 200 damage with 60 stability per shell. So hopefully that's kind of explained a rough idea. All of the artillery pretty much all works in a similar way. But I hope you're good with that, because we're about to get some more numbers now, because we're moving on to Inferno ammo. So strap in. Next image, as you can see, we have a new bubble. Our unlucky test subjects are here again, and this time the AoE for Inferno ammo on the long tom is 150 meters. The Inferno, you do take a big hit on the damage. It does 50 less damage than the standard ammo, but only has a 20 damage variance as opposed to the previous one, which has a 30. Which means Mech A will take a direct hit damage of between 20 to 60, 50 stability, and will take 10 heat. His unlucky friends at B and C will both take 50 damage each with no stability. And Mech A also takes the 50 AoE damage also. And then the fun starts with all the fires. You get 40 heat damage, you get 40 heat damage, everybody gets 40 heat damage. This means our friend in Mech A is not having much fun with taking direct damage of between 70 and 110 with 40 heat and 50 stability. And as you can see from the image there is some bonus features that comes with it as well. So if a mech is already heating, it would already do plus 10% damage to that mech. It will always start a terrain fire in quite a large radius. It covers a big area. It covers a big area, burns really hot, and it lasts 4 turns. So you really do not want any of your mechs anywhere near where these things are dropping. Lastly for this, we have the shaped charge. I apologize if I'm going through these a little bit quickly, but I do kind of need, there's like 11, 12 pages here, and I don't want to make this video an hour long if I can help it. So shaped charges, again, have an AoE bubble of 150 meters. It's not looking particularly good for them here because the shape charge actually hurts a lot more with the actual physical damage. So it gives you a 50% boost to potential direct damage. So that puts our direct damage now up between 105 and 165 for a direct hit with 50 stability. The mechs B and C will take a mere 60 AoE damage. So the shape charge actually concentrates more of the damage sort of like around in a much smaller cone. But they don't take any stability. But the friend in Mech A is obviously taking that AoE damage as well. So his total damage taken is going to be between 165 and 225 with 50 stability. So yeah, that's going to hurt a lot. Overall sort of conclusion on the system is, as previously mentioned, it's the main artillery for the main use I feel for the artillery class is sort of like aerial, denial, and bombardment. Again, duh. The Long Tom, with its variation of ammo types, is pretty good to suit this purpose, as well as having the best range. It is perfectly suited for mobile turret mechs. So, like for example, this Annihilator that we've actually got up on the screen here, which Dutch, I believe, actually has bonuses for recoil and stuff. There we go. It has a -3 to recoil. So these, if you're mounting artillery, these are the sort of mechs you want to look at. Stuff like Annihilators, Fafnirs, Bombards. That, you know, there's loads and loads and loads of ones which have got anything that sort of like reduces your recoil is where you want to be looking. So yeah, it's going to have a low engine size, so it's not going to be, so they're called mobile turrets because they don't really move very far and just like bombard stuff from across the map. Personally, I would say the Inferno ammo is better for dealing with mech and vehicle combat. So if you want to overheat groups of mechs, or do, obviously fire damage does more damage to vehicles, while the shape charge is more along the lines of if you sort of like got one mech on its own, or maybe one or two, or you're trying to destroy buildings and such. Or if you're trying to clear a path, say in an urban map, likewise the standard one will work just as well as that. So it kind of depends what you're trying to accomplish. If you just want to flat out just like destroy the enemy mechs, then obviously the shape charge is probably going to be better for you. But if you want to overheat them for salvage and stuff like that, and obviously Inferno stuff is going to be the way to go from there. Anyway, that being said, moving on to sniper artillery. Okay, middle entrant into the ballistic artillery class is the sniper artillery, weighing in at 20 tons with 10 slots. It is capable of being mounted in the arms, but you do need to remove any lower arm or hand actuators. It does make that a little bit easier to mount, although again, not massively great. Again, it also suffers from the -1 to indirect, -1 for the direct fire. But it does have a base damage variance of plus or minus 20. So that basically means if you're doing 70, if you can do 75 damage, it will either do 55 or it will do 95, sort of, backwards and forwards. And it has got the same scatter radius of between 15 and 35 meters that the Long Tom has. Also, it has the same recoil, and it also has the same double chance to score a critical hit. Now, the damage that the sniper artillery works is exactly the same as the, not the damage numbers, but how it works is exactly the same as the principles that I've already explained in the Long Tom. So in the interest of trying to speed things up a little bit, I'm just going to really sort of like delve through the numbers of these systems a little bit. Again, you can pause the video and just look at the images and stuff as well. What I'm also going to do is probably stick a copy of the script that I write for each episode from now on in my Discord channel, so you can actually read the text and all the images and stuff that will be through there, so you can read it at your own pace if that's going to help you. So anyway, moving on straight off with the standard ammo for the sniper. It does has 150 meter damage bubble. Direct damage is between 55 and 95 with 40 stability. AoE damage is 60 with 5 stability. So as you can see, Mech A's total damage is between 115 and 155 with 45 stability. Inferno ammo, again, exactly the same as before. It's you do, however, with this one, are taking a bit of a hit with the amount of damage you can do, purely because you're losing your 50 damage. Although it's only a 10 variance, it does make a significant damage to your direct damage output, shall we say. So the AoE bubble is 150 meters again, with your direct damage only being between 15 and 35, with 40 stability and 10 heat. AoE damage is only 10, doesn't have any stability, but you will still get the 40 heat damage. Mech A's direct damage then is a mere 25 to 45 with 40 stability, but you do 50 heat. All the damage features are exactly the same from the Long Tom one. The numbers are all exactly the same. How much range it covers, how hot it burns, how long it lasts. It's all pretty much the same across the board. Shape Charge is a little bit smaller bubble. Again, it only has an AoE of 75 meters. The direct damage is between 90 and 130, which is nice with a 40 stability. Coupled with the AoE damage of 30, it gives a very respectable damage of 120 to 160 direct damage or overall damage with 40 stability. Overall, again, the sniper class is probably a more common fit for you to be having. They're going to be the ones that you're going to be using more popular just because it's easier to mount. It does fit the same niche as the Long Tom, obviously, as the ammo types are the same. If your main goal is you want an artillery just purely for overheating the mechs, then sniper artillery is probably the better choice over the Long Tom because your heat output is the same. The AoE bubble is the same, but it is lighter and is going to be slightly cheaper to fire and does have slightly more ammo per ton. That's the other thing you need to be aware of with these guys. You know, they only have like 5 shots, so if you want to be firing these a lot, you need a lot of ammo to run with these. The sniper with the Long Tom also, the Shape Charge with the sniper, I feel if you want to be a little bit more accurate with your damage to mechs, is probably going to be a way to go with other than the Long Tom, purely because it's just got a smaller bubble and it's more likely to hit a more concentrated pile. That being said, that's the sniper one covered. On to Thumper. Okay, so moving on, to the last of the sort of 3 main ballistic classes. We have the Thumper artillery. It's a mere 15 tons and 8 slots. This is the baby of the 3. It is a slightly easier to mount as, again, it is smaller. It is, again, able to be mounted in the arms, and this time you can actually get away with having the lower arm and hand actuators in there at the same time. It has the same three different types of ammo. Its weapons base damage is like a plus or minus 10. Recoil is still 3. Same that like pretty much all of the sort of like main numbers are the same between all of them. The only difference the Thumper really has is it actually has a different type of ammo. It has standard, shaped, and face cam, facum. I don't know. Whatever. It's that. So the other 2 are basically exactly the same as the Long Tom and the sniper in terms of how they do their damage. Face cam gets more complicated, so you know, more damage numbers, yay. So I'm going to quickly whiz through the damage numbers and stuff for the first 2, and then we'll get onto the face cam because that's going to take a little bit more explaining. So starting off with the Thumper ammo. As you can see from the image here, we have a 100-meter damage bubble. Direct hit damage for Mech A is between 40 and 60 with 30 stability. There is anyone inside of it taking 40 AoE damage with 2 stability, giving Mech A a relatively light, soft tickle compared to the others of between 80 and 100 damage with 32 stability. The Shape Charge is a really tiny 30-meter bubble, but its direct damage is quite a respectable 65 to 85 with 30 stability, and with a decent AoE damage of 50, it means that Mech A's direct total damage is 115 to 135 with 30 stability, so that's pretty darn good for a weapon system of that size in the sniper class anyway. Now we're moving on to face cam. This stuff anyway. Again, now this is the strapping. This is going to get messy. Okay, so I've done my best to simplify this on the screen in something that you can sort of like visualize and see. So as you can see, it does work slightly differently. Our mechs have all disappeared and we just have our AoE bubble. This is primarily an area denial weapon, period. You do not want to be shooting, actively shooting mechs with this. Its main job is to wreck everything that's coming towards you or going through choke points and things. And I'll kind of explain why now. So first off, you fire how this works is you fire 1 shell. and then that shell gets to a certain point and then airbursts into 10 smaller projectiles, kind of like a cluster grenade in effect. Each one of those 10 projectiles contains one mine. Now, to reiterate my point that you should not actively be shooting mechs with this, because you don't actually want these projectiles to hit the mechs directly. You want them to actually land on the ground. So if that first shell that you fire hits an enemy target, it'll only do 25 damage, but it will not explode into the 10 smaller projectiles. If it does explode and one of the smaller projectiles directly hits a mech, before mystically transforming into a mine, it will only do about 12 damage or so. I've rounded some of these numbers down for the facecam stuff because it kind of gets a little bit, just to simplify it a little bit. So now let's say you are listening to me and you are not shooting these shells at mechs. Let's say you've done what you should and you've found a nice narrow section of the map that the enemy has to come through to get to you, and you've dropped one of these bad boys here, and now you've got 10 mines. What do? Well, it turns out quite a lot, actually. Each mine has a 80% chance to explode when triggered, which will do 5 direct damage and 5 heat straight to the footsie of the mech that actually stood on it. Doesn't sound a lot, but bear with us. Now it's exploded, the fun doesn't stop, because now each of those mines has a 30-meter AoE bubble that does 10 damage, 5 heat, and 1 stability. So essentially, you have a minefield that has a total capacity, if they all went off in their AoE bubbles, it's about 300 damage there or thereabouts. On top of that, each mine has a 40% chance to light a fire. Sorry, I'm on another page. I told you there was a lot. Now, times all of those 10 that are basically already in a concentrated area of 120 meters, it gets interesting. Another good part of this is all of the damage is dealt to the legs. Legs of said mech standing in the little death bubble, and if there is no armor on said mech's legs, and the damage is dealt directly to the structure, or it's basically stripped the structure, strip the armor off and doing damage to the structure, it will basically stop any momentum of the mech whatsoever. So if a light mech is running through that field and it steps on a mine and it basically blows all the armor off and does damage to the structure, it will stop that mech dead wherever it stands. So its other million points of evasion it may have had will completely go out the window because it's now stuck standing in a minefield. Some other useful information to go with it. You yourself cannot trigger your own mines. However, if you are in the area of effect when a enemy mech sets off one of those mines, you will take damage. AoE damage is not friendly, it's not your friend, and it is going to hurt. So you don't want to be running around in the minefield with your melee bot trying to, punch things when there's other things like the enemy's actively moving around in that little death bubble. There is no chain reaction mechanic, so one mine cannot set off another one. Even though there's a 30-meter AoE, they're like one going off. They can only be, you can't shoot them, you can't missile them, with one exception. The only way to make the mines explode is by stepping on them with big robotic tootsies. So, yeah, like I said, feel free to go back and pause that. It is a lot to take in. But again, it's one that needed the level of detail because the actual way the game explains it to you, and even in the wiki, isn't accurate at all. Overall conclusion of the system as a whole, the Thumper, in general, is your sort of early mid-game artillery. It packs an alright punch for its size, but honestly, it's going to struggle when you get to the sort of like the heavier skull missions. Although, like, stuff like with the face cam and stuff can actually be quite handy. It's solid piece. It is a solid piece of gear, and the face cam ammo does make it have interesting abilities for tactical plays, setting traps and dealing with high mobility targets and such. One scenario that springs to mind is ambush convoy missions, where you could theoretically, the path that they're going to travel. Most of them are fairly linear and fairly easy to work out. You can just literally cover the road with mines and just let the enemy convoy blow itself apart. Personally, obviously, for, like, all the ones that have lost their evasion, you can then pick off from a distance. Personally, I like the running around and stomp them on the head, but, that's just me. That being done, we are going to move on to the last system now, which is the Arrow 4, the missile-based artillery system. Okay, so here we have the Arrow 4. How the damage works for all the different types of damage is exactly the same as the ballistic-based weapons. With terms of how the mechanics work, obviously the damage numbers are different. Because there are actually two different versions of this thing as well, which I've actually forgotten to put in there because there's that one as well. So now we actually have two different sets of damage numbers. So yay, all more numbers, just what we need. Yeah. So I now have to do the numbers for both the clan and the Arrow clan and the IS variant. And yes, this made my head hurt a lot trying to do this. There was a lot of writing things down, and yeah, it gets complicated. So I think I've hopefully done the hard part for you. So, you know, you guys just get to sit back and just look at the charts and the sheets, and you can, you know, just pretty much see for yourself. There is, again, it doesn't have shape charge, but we have the 4 different ammo types. We have the standard, we have the face cam, we have Inferno, and yeah, there's a nuke. Yeah, you heard me. There's a nuke. It's called a Davy Crockett, but it's essentially a nuke. Also, just a little tidbit: these missiles cannot be shot down by AMS at all whatsoever. They're too big. They don't care. No F's given. Wherever you fire this thing at, that's where these things at. That's where they're going to land. So before we go into the actual ammo different variants themselves, we're just going to do a quick overview of the weapons themselves. So the IS variant weighs in at 15 tons with an 8 slot, whereas the clan only weighs 12 tons with 8 slots. The IS only has a 60 base damage with a ±20 variance, whereas the Arrow has a ±35 variants, but it does 75 more damage. Again, neither of these can fire in a melee either. Both have the same range, the same stability, or do the same stability damage of 10, and they have the same recoil of 3, and they generate the same amount of heat, which is 30. So starting off with the standard ammo, cue the chart. We have a 120 meter paint bubble with the IS system dealing 60 damage with a 20 variance versus the clan doing 75 with a 35 variance, both doing 10 stability. Both have an AoE damage of 60 with 5 stability. This means the overall damage for the IS variant on Mech A is between 100 and 140 with 10 stability, and with the clan is 100 to 190, with both of our friends in the bubble taking the same 60 damage and 5 stability from both weapons. Again, all of the figures are there. I know personally, like hearing lots of numbers, I tend to glaze over, so just pause the video and just read through the sheet here. Moving on to the Inferno rounds, we are still in a 120 meter bubble. As you've probably guessed by now, with the running theme with Inferno stuff, we have taken quite a serious damage, direct damage hit of -50. With the IS having dropped to a base damage now of to a base 10 damage with a 5 variance, and clan dropping to 25 with a 15 variance. Both weapons do the same amount of heat with 10, and both do 5 stability. This is, again, obviously direct damage. The AoE is the same at 10 damage for both, 0 stability and 20 heat. This makes our total damage output for the IS system of between direct damage, overall damage is 15 to 25, and the clan is 15 to 55. Again, both dealing the same 10 stability and both dealing the same 30 heat, and our little AoE friends taking 10 damage and 20 heat damage each. Now, there is a slight difference in the bonus features here. The Arrow 4 fires actually cover double the area that the Inferno, the sort of terrain fires cover with the previous weapon systems, and they actually deal they actually burn twice as hot. I haven't gone into the figures of them specifically because it's kind of really difficult to quantify, and I didn't want to make it any more complicated. Just suffice to say, it makes a big area, a big area of the map burn, and it makes it burn really hot. But I'm not really sure that having that extra sort of heat area and the higher heat damage in that area, much of a trade-off between the lower actual amount of direct heat damage it will do and the damage output. But that's me personally. Obviously your mileage may vary. Now moving on to the I really hated doing this. This took some head scratching to get this. Too many numbers just made my head hurt. Right, okay. So face cam ammo for the Arrow 4 essentially works exactly the same as the face cam ammo for the Thumper. The only differences being that the one shell now breaks into 20 smaller projectiles as opposed to 10. And the amount of damage they all do if they hit directly before exploding has changed slightly. So, the initial shell, if the initial shell hits before exploding, the IS shell will do 30 damage, and the clan one will do about 37. Again, I've rounded these numbers slightly. It's like a couple of points. I've rounded some of them to make it slightly easier. And if one of the smaller projectiles hits before mystically transforming into a mine, it only does 15 damage for the IS one, and it does 17 damage for the clan. Again, rounded off. All other stats with regards to the 80% chance to explode, 30 meter AoE, etc., is all exactly the same as the Thumper. Moving on to the last one, the Davy Crockett, aka the nuke. Basically, you need only 3 things for this to work: a mech to carry it, 1,000,000 C-bills per round to fire it, and some enemies to obliterate, or a base, or like pretty much anything on that section of the map. It has its own damage stat, which pretty much overrides anything meaningful on either the sort of clan or IS side. So what I mean by that is basically ignore the 60 and 65 and damage variance and all. It basically means nothing now. It has a direct... It doesn't matter which weapon system you fire this from. It has its own direct hit of 2,000. No, that's not a typo. That is 2,000, 2K. And yeah, so like anything you hit is going to like die instantly, vaporize. It has a 360 meter bubble o' death, in which anything that's inside it will take 1,250 damage. Yeah, and just on the off chance that anything survive that, it will do 500 heat to all of those as well. On top of that, and honestly, like stability wise, I'm not even going to bother, because it doesn't really matter, because everything is already lying flat on the floor, either dying or dead. And if that wasn't enough, it is the only weapon system that can actively clear mines as well, within a certain bubble. I forgot to write that down, but basically it doesn't really matter, because once you nuke somebody and want the team with this, it's pretty much game over anyway. So the damage equations are mech plus Arrow 4 plus Davy Crockett equals win. That's all you really need to know, to be honest. But seriously, on an alternate note, do not be absolutely anywhere near this thing when you are firing it. You want to be on the other side of the map, preferably. Just seriously, don't be like, you're going to lose whatever mech goes anywhere near it. Arrow 4 as a whole, the system as a whole, is a very solid weapon system. Again, it does have the ability, it comes in at the Thumper, for the IS one, at least, with the 15 tons and 8 slots, and the Arrow, the clan one, with the 12 tons. So again, you could mount this early game if you've got a decent sort of medium mech with stuff on it. Honestly, I wouldn't bother with the Inferno ammo, and I might, like, weapon system wise, I would probably choose the clan one over the IS for just purely for the weight saving and a little bit extra damage, to be honest. The Inferno ammo is okay. I wouldn't personally bother with it that much over something like the sniper one. But the face cam is extremely good for the area of denial, and you know, the nuke kind of speaks for itself, really, to be honest. Okay, so on to my final thoughts for all of this. As I've mentioned before, I feel the artilleries have, you know, artillery pieces do have a very specific role. AoE mayhem, be it minefields, flattening cities, heating mechs up so you can fry bacon on their corpses, whatever. Make no mistake, they are very effective at what they do. Depending obviously on the ammo type and the system you're using, will vary that degree greatly. However, personally for me, there are some significant downsides. First of all, the weight and the space investment is huge. Again, considering the amount of damage they deal, for me, not so great. And also, like, from an ammo perspective, each ammo bin doesn't really hold very many. I mean, like, looking at the Arrow 4-1 here, 5 slots is pretty much about standard. Like, the Long Tom, I think, is like 2 or 3. And like the Davy Crockett ammo bin is 1. So yeah, that's, you know, again, it gets very expensive to start throwing a lot of these shells around. Yeah, so early on you can't really use them because you are going to struggle to find a mech to actually fit the things. Again, like I said, something like the Arrow 4, possibly the clan variant, possibly the IS, possibly the Thumper, you might be able to get a decent medium if you've got Endo Steel and clan like Ferrofibrous on it. You might just about manage it with an XL. But it is definitely more of a mid personally for me anyway, mid-late game system. However, also their roles do, I feel, again, that their roles diminish significantly as the battle goes on, and it gets less and less likely the enemy is going to be far enough away from you that you can reliably do damage without hurting yourself in the first place. Like, my personal opinion is that artillery is too niche to be used in the early part of the battle. It's with it only being useful really in the sort of early to sort of mid part of the battle. And my personal playstyle is up close and personal melee combat with sort of like mid to long range pinpoint damage. So, you know, taking support from things like LRM launchers, PPCs, Gauls rifles, and racks and stuff like that, while you've got a couple of mechs sort of like, you know, raging havoc and, you know, making stuff unsteady. But Doves will argue that danger close is a way of life, and he loves playing with his artillery, and having a mech with an artillery piece and some backup weapons is good option also. But again, this is the thing with BTA. It doesn't really matter what I think, and it doesn't really matter what Doves thinks. My whole purpose for being here is to give you all the information you need on how these systems work, to give you my sort of advice and sort of like general use cases, ideas for these, and set you off in your own Argo and off on your own little merry way to develop your own playstyle on how you like to play. And that's the great thing about the mod. It's got so much versatility. You can pretty much do whatever you like. So that being said, that is the video pretty much done. Again, I apologize for how long it is, but you know, as you can appreciate, there's a lot of stuff to get through. I hope it was helpful. Again, I will put a copy of the script in my Discord channel, so there will be a dedicated channel just for that. I'm not spell checking it or going through for every little grammatical error, so don't bother pointing them out to me. I'm not interested. These are that I'm just chucking them in there as mainly these are mainly just a guide for me to use. So what you hear me say in the video is not 100% of what exactly I've written down. I tend to paraphrase a little bit. But yeah, if you did find it helpful, you know, a sub to the channel would be absolutely amazing. Obviously, a like to the video would be great as well. Again, don't forget I have a Twitch channel as well. I do try and stream on a Monday and Friday, health permitting. You know, that's, you know, very much up in the air at the moment, but I'd be cool to see you there as well. Apart from that, though, that's me done today, guys. I hope you stay safe, and I'll catch you next time. Bye bye.